Hi everyone, my name is Nick, and this is the Rock and Reel Workshop in Sandersville, Georgia. So I'll be working on an Abu Garcia Ambassadeur 550 plus baitcaster. This baitcaster is pretty close to an Abu Garcia 5000 or 6000 series baitcaster. The major difference on this is that the body is made out of graphite, and this reel in particular has bushings on the spool instead of bearings. The client that submitted this reel told me that it sounds like a pterodactyl when she makes a cast, and that it's a rough reel in general. An easy way to help with this problem is to switch out the factory stock bushings for some Boca ceramic bearings. So I'm going to show you how I take the factory bushings out of the Abu Garcia 550 plus reel and replace those with some Boca ceramic bearings. To do this, you really only need a small flathead screwdriver. So as you can see, there's the baitcaster, the 550 plus. These are the bearings from Boca Bearings, and this is just a small flathead screwdriver. Now if you don't have a small flat-headed screwdriver, you could use a toothpick or something else. You're going to be using this to help get the bushings or existing bearings out of your reel. Take a listen to this reel. Doesn't sound very good. So to start out, I'm going to loosen the thumb screws on the right faceplate of this reel. On this model there are 3. And these thumb screws, you just loosen them, and then once you have them loose, the entire side plate will come off. Once you take off the side plate, don't worry about that. This is where we're going to be working. This is actually one of the bushings that we're going to be replacing. It's the spool. Once you have that faceplate off, actually just lift the spool out. After you've got the spool out of the main assembly, go ahead and set the main assembly aside. This is where we're going to be doing all the work at. So go ahead and take the main axle out of the spool. It should just come right out. Set the main axle aside as well. Now you'll see a nylon gear one end of the spool. This should also just come right out. Set that aside as well with everything else. Now there's a bushing. If you have a different round model of Abu Garcia, this could be a bearing. It could be an old worn out bearing. The 550 plus Ultra Cast, this is a bushing. The bushing should just come right out. If for some reason it doesn't, this is when you would use your toothpick or your flathead screwdriver. And if you were to actually use this, you just gently try to get this bushing or bearing out. You don't want to be making scratches on the spool. In the case of this reel, it just pops right out. So here you go. This is what the bushing looks like, and this is what the replacement bearing looks like. They're the same size. And if you don't know what size bearing your reel needs, actually go to Abu Garcia's site or your reel maker's site and get a schematic. And Boca has the replacement sizes. This is a pretty standard size. Going to Boca's site, you can pretty much find the 5500 and 6500 Abu Garcia size bearings in a lot of their models. So these just are interchangeable. I'm going to take the Boca bearing and now place it right into the spool. Just use your finger or a Q-tip to push it on down in there. You don't have to cram it in there. And after I've got it in there, stick the nylon gear back in. Now I'm going to go to work on the other end. The other end is a little bit more difficult. If you'll notice, there are 2 little nylon brakes. These need to be there. They do help with your casting, but they're also there to make sure that the spool assembly itself stays together. So make sure when you're disassembling this end, that if you take these off, make sure you don't lose them. If for some reason you do, you can use a small piece of plastic like a straw to build or to cut a new one. I recommend not losing these though. So you'll just take off the little brakes, and now that you've taken the brakes off, there's still a smaller wire ring. This wire ring that fits on this washer. It's pretty easy to take off. This is another place though that you'll probably need a small screwdriver. Be careful not to bend it when you're taking it off. It should come right off though. There we go. And you don't want to lose this either. So now, take off the slotted washer. And remember, the brakes were on these little ears of the slotted washer. There, the other bushing. And this bushing should come right out too, but be careful, there's a washer inside your spool. So don't go crazy when you smack it to get the bushing out, because you could lose the washer that's inside there. See the washer? Make sure that doesn't fall out, and if it does, put it back in before you put the replacement bearing in. So make sure the washer's in there. Take the replacement bearing. I'm going to drop that into the spool. Use my finger, or you could use the back of your screwdriver or a Q-tip. And now I have that bearing in there. I'm actually going to take some real oil and just put a little bit, maybe one drop, and just rub it around in there. Get it all in there in the spool. It's on the bearing and the spool. I'm going to do the same thing to this end. And as I go back through reassembling the reel, for general maintenance, if you want it to actually cast smoother and take advantage of the improved performance that you're going to get with some Boca bearings, you want to go ahead and clean your reel and lube all the major friction points. You want to use grease on your gears and oil on your bearings and drag. So as I go back through, I'll be squirting a little bit of oil and grease in it. Make sure that the nylon washer's nylon gear's still in there. Place the slotted washer back onto the spool. Before I put the little brakes on, I'm actually going to put a small wire clamp back on first. You don't even really need a tool after you take it off. The taking off is the hard part. You should just go right back on there. This actually holds this washer on. So I've reassembled the washers on the spool assembly. I got the slotted washer back on there. Then I placed the wire clamp back on there to hold that washer on. And I made sure and got those nylon brakes back on. Now after doing that, place the spool back into the main housing, or the frame itself. Make sure it lines up and spins. Then take your axle, place it back in to the spool. And this is a major friction point as well, so it doesn't hurt to put a little oil on that end and a little oil on this end. When I'm putting oil, just barely put a little bit. A little goes a long way. So now, all you have to do is put your side plate back on. Now, you got to make sure, look at the teeth on your pinion gear. This pinion gear, I'll show you by turning the handle. Turn the handle. Watch that pinion gear move. See that slot? Pinion gear slot has to line up with the slot that's created by the slotted washer, those two teeth that stick out. So when you line it up, you just need to make sure, turn the handle until you think it's going to line up your screws. Let's see if I can do this while trying to film myself. There we go. You don't want to force this together because your reel won't work the way it should if you cram it together. See, I've got it all lined up. Before you even screw these thumb screws, make sure that it's turning. So now you just tighten the thumb screws and you're ready to go. And in addition to putting the Boca ceramic bearings into this reel for the client, I also super tuned it, which is a deep clean and polishing of all the major friction points. The shims, the spool, the pinion, and the friction plate. I also cut some new drags for this reel to improve the drag performance. Just take a listen. It doesn't make the rattling anymore. See? It sounds a lot better. Thanks for hanging out. Hope the client likes this. Hope it does what she expects, performs well for her.
Okay, so I got a Sammy tied on my new and improved reel with Boca Bearings. And let's see how much further I can cast this than another Abu Garcia that doesn't have these bearings. Let me do that in a second too. Here we go.
And I hope you learned something. It's really easy to switch bushings out for bearings, provided that you find the correct bearing or bushing size that you have, and that you have one of these 550s or a 5000 or 6000 series Abu Garcia. Those are really easy to switch that out on, and other baitcasters as well.
Alright, so I've got my friend Abu Garcia P500C3 that I'm going to cast and see how it fares.
Wake up feeling the daybreak. Your head splits and so heartache.
Key here to make sure you get the right size bearing and that you don't leave any parts out of the reel once you put it back together. It always helps to find a schematic such as this one from your manufacturer to help you put the puzzle back together. Thanks for watching. Feel free to get in touch with me if you have any questions or a problem that you can't fix. I work on rods, reels, and music equipment. My name is Nick, and this is the Rock and Reel Workshop in Sandersville, Georgia.
Oh my God! Ah! Doing well! Big catfish! Woo! Yeah! Oh yeah! This is a spot! Woohoo! Get the boat! Get the boat! Yeah! Alright. Good deal. Woo, baby! Large mouth! That's a large mouth. I know that over here. Oh, thank you. Oh, you didn't beat up. Maybe I should have took that one.
Kept you up last night.